Welcome to Building the Future. I'm your host, Kevin Horick. You can find the show online at buildingthefutureshow.com or follow me on Twitter at BuildingShow. You can also find it on iTunes, Stitcher, and YouTube. I'm excited to announce that I am now a brand ambassador for the Business Rock Summit in Manchester, England, April 21st and 22nd, where Steve Wozniak is headlining. More details at business-rocks.com.
Welcome back to the show. Today we have the team at Nuuk Digital. Guys, welcome to the show.
Hi.
Thanks, hi.
Well, how about maybe we get each of you to kind of say your name and give kind of a quick intro about what you guys do?
Sure. My name is Lina. I am in charge of marketing in Nuuk Digital specifically, but I think at the beginning we're also a startup, so we do a lot of different things.
Okay.
Hi guys, my name is Luca. I'm in charge of social media platforms, so LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, etc. But as Lina said, we all basically do whatever needs to be done.
Sure.
Perfect. Okay. Hello, also from me. So my name's David, and I'm doing the digital analytics and AdWords strategy setup for Nuuk. So working a lot on the client-facing side.
Sure. No, that's awesome. I'm curious to know kind of if each one of you can kind of go through kind of where you grew up.
Yeah, of course. Should we do it in the same order?
Sure,
guess?
Why not?
Okay, so I myself, I grew up in Slovenia, as you will see, like the other two as well.
Sure.
Which is a country next to Croatia, Italy, maybe the more known countries in the West. And I went to school there, but then also went to school in Paris, where I studied at university, and then did my master's in Monaco, actually, random choice. And then I moved to Dublin to work for Google. So that's my background in brief. So in Google, I worked in AdWords specifically, so in digital marketing, working with small and medium sized businesses, which actually led to the startup idea that we're now sort of putting to reality with the other two.
Sure.
All right. I started growing up in Istanbul, Turkey, to be honest. So then we moved back to Slovenia.
Huh.
I actually went to finish high school in Slovenia, went to the UK to university, and then just came back to Slovenia to start working in digital agencies. After a while, I moved to Croatia, to Zagreb, to the capital city. And, just all of a sudden, the idea for our startup came up. And I moved to Dublin as well. So this is where we are now.
Okay, interesting.
And okay, so last but not least, so I also grew up similarly as Lina in the same city in Slovenia. Then started studying in Ljubljana, which would be the capital. Then moved to Sweden, where I was studying in Linköping for a year. I studied business informatics. Also came back to study finance and then work in the analytics industry for finance. And then also similarly as Lina, moved to Dublin, where I worked for Google with small and medium businesses, and later on with large customer sales. So mostly on the performance side of the digital analytics, yeah.
Okay, no, that's really cool. You guys have kind of a pretty diverse background, and it's cool to me that all of you kind of, or most of you worked at Google.
Yeah. Well,
I some sort of, let's say, I educated people for Google, so I was leading courses for Google AdWords.
Right.
So, yeah, we're all somehow connected to Google.
It's how we met, yeah. So yeah. We met through Google because, different circumstances, but actually more specifically at an event that we had, and we were all there. So.
Right. That's cool. So I'm curious then, what exactly is Nuuk Digital?
Okay, so as a fun fact, it's spelled as the capital of Greenland, but so we're promoting there a little bit. But it is a digital agency that specializes in consulting and helping establish partnerships with tech startups which are in pre, mid, and post-funding stage. So we would be working with them. I would say that we're different in two things. So firstly, we really are focused on the tech aspect. Okay. So when they go through that funding stages, we help them develop And that actually leads us to the second stage, where our vision is actually to grow with our clients. So that leads us that we're much more focused on the results itself, where we sit down with them, we help them develop, and throughout the time we actually develop different various data analysis and website analytics tools that then help us get the most cost efficient platforms, and kind of through trial and error help them grow and scale their businesses worldwide.
Right. Okay. So do you guys work with kind of companies all over the world then?
Yes. So I think at the moment we have all the continents covered, so we're quite proud of that.
Oh, that's awesome. So I'm kind of curious, because obviously there's a lot of people kind of in your space. I'm curious to know kind of what's your approach when, you know, somebody that has a startup kind of comes to you guys and says, I need your help.
Yeah, well, I'll take this one.
Sure.
We usually don't have like a fixed approach. We have we always trying to set a custom approach for each customer.
Right.
It's not like one size fits all.
Sure.
We try to, set define goals and targetings for each customer separately. We work on them together and try to, achieve those targets that actually we've set. Maybe the biggest difference is that we focus on data and give our clients an in-depth insights into their online business. So, it's not like one size fits all. We just try to be as custom as possible.
Sure. And I think it makes sense because, well, data doesn't lie, right? And that's an interesting approach. So kind of what types of clients do you work with?
So, I mean, we generally work with, like David already mentioned, tech startups. We really focus on them. So we're gaining much more expertise there and from the past experiences as well. But if we sort of generalize, it would be global clients who are trying to expand their online sales, be it their mid-crowdfunding campaign and they need an extra push, or their pre-crowdfunding and they need to expand and they don't know the markets where this would sell online, etc. So most of them would be product and gadget startups, so they would be selling a product or a range of products. We have a few that are e-commerce clients, but I think over time now we've focused much more on product specific businesses. So generally they are very, very different. I think the only common denominator are that they are all sort of focused on sales globally, meaning that they don't have only one market.
Right. Okay. So do you guys kind of do just kind of software products, or do you guys do hardware stuff as well?
I guess, in what way do you mean software and hardware products?
Well, I guess like if I'm building kind of, I don't know, like a Pebble watch, would like something like Pebble be a potential client? Because yeah, they're kind of tech, but they're also doing a hardware space, or you just kind of focus on the digital products?
Thanks for explaining. I was thinking if we create the products, but I get potential clients, right? No, so definitely all. I mean, as long as there is something where we see potential in the market, meaning that we know it would be easy, not easy, but that they could actually target in different markets globally for their target customer. So if it would be Pebble, like you said, we would see, okay, the target customer is younger, they are doing sport, they are active, they use gadgets. So it's definitely a big market online for this, right? When it's something extremely niche, if we see there is opportunity and that there is a niche out there that we can target to, of course we can do that. I think with software, it's a different approach. We also have a few clients which would be software in the sense of web platforms, like they want to grow user base, where again, digital marketing is super important because you need to show yourself so they know that you exist, to gain audiences, gain users on your website. So it's definitely both type of companies for sure.
Sure. No, that's awesome. So I'm kind of curious then, what would be like the 5 mistakes startups make with their digital strategy?
Yeah, that's a good question, and I think we we normally have 5 things that we see. So I mean, I think we'll go more into in depth in them. But first, for sure, is planning. So we notice with a lot of startups, they forget to include digital strategy in their plans.
Right.
So a lot of them we would contact, they would be already, for example, mid-selling product or having pre-orders, but they've not even thought of, putting the ads on Facebook or Google or set up remarketing or analytics. So I think that's one of, we could say it's a mistake because they don't think of it ahead of time, because it definitely needs planning ahead. So they mostly focus on product and the service, which of course is great. But if no one knows about your product, right, no one will be able to really buy it and get you the revenue that you have planned. So I think there are some startups that we've worked with that have included their digital advertising and PR efforts in their plan, but they don't look at it as a long-term investment. They consider it more as a like plug and play strategy. With this, I mean, they think of it like, okay, I'll put $5,000 in today, put some ads on, and I think I'll get 10,000 out tomorrow.
Right,
maybe like next month, but very short term. And unfortunately, it doesn't really work that way. Like budgets and efforts need to be planned in advance and with a long-term outlook, and then based on in-depth research of online industry, seeing which markets they will target when, what are sort of let's say Thanksgiving opportunities, Black Friday opportunities, and you need to plan that ahead. You cannot just decide a day before Black Friday, oh, maybe we should put some ads on Facebook. So
Right,
I think planning is definitely one of them.
Okay.
I think the second, I'll give the word to Luca.
Yeah,
Okay.
cheers for that one. So yeah, the second part is all about expectations. It happened a lot of time when we have the first discussion with a client, with a new client or a potential client. There's a big gap in the digital marketing knowledge and the expectations. So a lot of people actually think that you just create the ads, put them online, and bam, the sales will start coming in. They will bring the good ROI. It's as you might know, it's far from reality.
Mm-hmm.
It's much more things to do. Ad design is just not what image or which headline or what will be the USP that will work best. It's a landing page experience. What actually happens when someone gets on the website? Is the product good enough? How's the experience on the website itself? Is it simple to find the checkout button and stuff like that? It's like million different things that actually some sort of let's say define good or bad product online. Testing and targeting is a big different. It makes a big difference. We can actually target audiences that's in different platforms and tools. So it all takes time and resources to nail down the perfect combination, which we usually scale in the long run. It's hard to see results coming in after a week or 2 weeks. It usually takes up to let's say 3 weeks or 1 month time. And just to sum it up, majority of people look at digital marketing as a short-term investment with direct returns. It is actually a long-term investment and with direct and indirect returns. You have the assisted conversions, you have people converting through different channels, and it's getting more and more trickier to attribute the right channel to just see what actually works best.
Sure. No, I think that's a really good point, because I think part of the thing that's key, and I think a lot of people forget, is okay, you release a product and it's version 1 or and whatnot, and you start getting some user feedback and you start actually getting some customers and whatnot. You need to keep kind of doing user testing and other types of testing, and like you mentioned, like tweak your landing page and maybe move where your checkout button is, or you kind of need to almost like rework different flows of your app, and even try different things through like A/B testing and whatnot. So I think you're totally right that I think most people don't consider it a long-term investment, but if you want a successful app, it needs to be, and you need to be constantly tweaking and trying to see what works and what doesn't work, because you guys mentioned this earlier, that you guys are doing data-driven stuff, and at the end of the day, data doesn't really lie. It doesn't really matter what what I think is the best or what any of you guys think the best. But if the user says that, this layout converts better than the layout that, the four of us prefer, well, of course we're going to use the one that converts better, right?
Yeah, exactly. I couldn't agree more, to be honest. It's a lot of A/B testing. We do it on a daily basis. So, it's just, you were spot on, to be honest.
So I'm curious, maybe, is there any like tools that you guys can recommend for people to try out there that, I get that you can always build custom stuff, but is there any tools that you guys use that you could recommend to the listener?
Well, it depends. We usually try to work as much as possible with, the basic tools like the Ads Manager in Facebook. You can see a lot of results coming from there.
Sure.
Analytics Google Analytics gives you the best results possible relating to the website. This is just the simple tools we use. Usually, David is the one actually focusing on different tools.
David?
Okay.
Yeah, I can jump on this one. So I would say that in terms of the measuring stuff, the Google Analytics would be our number one tool that we use on a daily basis, more than X amount of hours per day. That is especially when we're looking at the conversion rates, and just like Kevin, to come back to your point, right, on A/B testing. Usually, what we say is the website that performs at 1% conversion rate versus 0.5 can make all the difference.
Sure.
Between you making profit or making huge losses. So it's kind of making those incremental little steps that lead you down that road. So Google Analytics is definitely the one that helps us the most. When we look at the quality of traffic for the campaigns, this is also where we kind of combine the Google Analytics and then the platforms itself, like Facebook and AdWords and Twitter Ads Manager. So here, me and Luca would be mostly looking at how can we tweak the quality of traffic and how the different segments that we lead to the page basically respond to the layout, as you said. So that's one. And on the research side, the one that I would definitely recommend are some of them actually are already implemented in the platforms. Like you have a keyword planner in AdWords, display planner. On Facebook, you can research your audiences. Then you have Google Trends, consumer journey that are all available to think with Google. When you're doing a keyword research, especially if you're in industries with more competitive offers, especially for e-commerce, then you have SEMrush, Ahrefs. Like there's a lot of them. I think it depends what your objective is, and then you can accommodate to that, I guess.
Sure. So do you guys do anything on kind of page speed optimization at all?
So usually with the startups that we work with, they would generally have a technical guy in the back. So we would we create dashboards that would be measuring the page speeds of the websites.
Right.
And it's mostly here where the servers are bought, because if you're operating on a global level, it matters a lot how quickly the website opens in Australia versus the US, right?
Totally.
So we do always keep the monitoring of that, but generally they would have the webmaster would be responsible for the optimization of that.
Sure. No, I think that makes sense. Like that's kind of what I assume, but it's interesting because I know you can shave so much page load speed, especially on mobile, if you just like remove, something simple as like gradients and text shadows and whatnot from your app. You might add those later on at a bigger resolution, or you might turn them on at, certain bandwidths, but you can remove a lot just tweaking that kind of technical stuff.
In general, I would say that it's definitely one area that's very important. It's almost often it's overlooked, but
totally.
Especially if you're going into loading times which are higher than 4 seconds or maybe even 5 seconds, you would start losing on those conversions just because the landing page doesn't open that fast, and especially for mobile devices, right? Because mobile devices are becoming an increasingly important factor in the consumer journey, especially on the research side. Even though conversions generally then would would kind of sell down the desktop alley, but then the cross device, it's definitely important. And if you don't load fast enough on mobile, you're actually losing people that are interested in your product.
Sure.
And I think it's good to add. I mean, it links a lot that you mentioned this page speed. A lot of times we would see setting up, for example, online advertising campaigns, and you would see a lot of clicks, but not many visits to the website. And you're thinking, and then you realize the website is loading for 14 seconds. It makes sense that, you know, people will click on the ad, but they won't be waiting until it loads after 10 seconds, or they're going to close the page, meaning you would have paid for those clicks, but you didn't get people on the site, you know. So that becomes a big problem once you start spending money. It's very important that the site is running as smoothly as possible, so that people who sort of show interest in your product, once they see the ad, that you don't lose them because they need to wait. You know, people are not used to waiting anymore.
Sure. No, I think that's actually like a really, really good point, because like, and I include myself in what I'm about to say, is like I work as the designer, and so, you know, I do kind of web and mobile stuff. So, you know, obviously I have the latest phone and the latest MacBook Pro, and, you know, everything flies for me, right? No matter what device I'm on, I have the latest stuff. But majority of the people that are looking at this stuff don't. And the crazy thing about it is, even like Walmart in the States launched a $10 Android phone. So basically, that can't be running good specs. If I remember, it's not like a terrible phone, but if you think about it, like we, you know, as designers love these crazy page animations and transitions and, like I mentioned earlier, gradients and text shadows and all that stuff. But that stuff works awful on a phone. Even a good phone, it usually kind of chugs a bit, but you think about that on like an old phone or a phone that's just, you know, somebody just got for free or really, really cheap. I think you guys bring up a really interesting point that I think a lot of people forget. Like most people aren't looking at it on a $2,000+ Mac or a, you know, $800 to $1,000 brand new iPhone, right? Where a lot of designers, that's what they test their stuff on. And it's super important to test on some of the low-end devices. And as more and more markets of the world come online, majority of people are going to be, you know, on a slow data connection through a cell tower, and their phone is going to be the only way they ever experience the internet. So I think the fact that we're kind of having this conversation about speed and mobile is super important.
Yeah, absolutely. It's absolutely true, because, you know, more and more people have, like, you know, cool smartphones, but not all ever good. So, you know, if you have an $80, you know, iPhone is different if you have like $20, like you said, Android.
Yeah.
The loading times in mobile are the big thing, you know, since 2013. They've been saying it's a mobile year in 2014, 2015. And I think, you know, year of mobile was actually 2015 is going now. Who knows what's going to be next year, but loading time on mobile is one of the big things that, you know, should improve in the next few months.
And I think what's interesting actually now that that we're mentioning more mobile loading times is because we work with a lot of startups and Kickstarter projects. The interesting fact that Kickstarter, for example, says on their own help center, when people are facing, for example, discrepancies between their data, like, for example, their ads are saying that there were 1,000 clicks, but their analytics would say there were like 200 visits, right?
Right.
And Kickstarter says it themselves that the website doesn't load fast on mobile. So visits from mobile devices are generally not going to be sessions, you know, whereas you are paying for clicks. So we have to, of course, from the advertising perspective, adapt to that and focus more on desktop, even though, you know, we could drive a lot of traffic from mobile. But if we know that the site is not going to be loading, you can't spend a client's money on something that's not going to bring users to actually see what is on there, right? So it's interesting that a big company, you know, like that and super sort of techie is not yet there yet.
Well, and the other thing I think to mention is Google in 2015 decided that if your site wasn't optimized for mobile, that it was going to rank a lot lower.
Yeah, for mobile devices. And like it's unbelievable. Like even for us, like we have experience working in Nigeria, which is our are kind of like a base in for Africa. And I mean, the world there, it's completely different, right? I
Sure.
mean, the rules that apply here in the West, they do not apply there. I mean, even the mobile conversions are actually coming in on mobile because there was simply a gap like that was just skipped with the desktop. So if you need to decide between a laptop and a smartphone, you just decide for a smartphone because it's something which you always can have with you. So
Sure.
it's definitely a learning experience, and the more that we go into the Asian markets, the more we see of a similar trend where pretty much the mobile searches are already far ahead from desktop searches, especially on Google, where we used to work. And I mean, it's something we need to kind of get used to it, I guess, because I think especially Europe being on the conservative side, that desktop search is still far ahead, and people are still kind of trying to get used to the new environment. But if you're gonna go for the global market, Hong Kong, Singapore, which would be the most techy environments in Asia, along with South Korea and Japan, they would be having completely different consumer journeys, and cross devices so much bigger there.
Sure.
So it's really good to kind of get all the aspects on that.
I know, like, my buddy spent a year in Japan, and he had the coolest flip phone. And I can't believe I'm even saying cool and flip phone in the same sentence. But, like, it was a full-blown OS, and it was awesome. I don't even know how to put it into words how cool it was. But, like, it's a device that I've never seen in North America, and I never will unless I order one online. But we forget about that. We just kind of designed for the latest Android and iOS devices, and maybe Windows Phone, and I don't know if BlackBerry ever makes a comeback, but
They're trying hard. Let's just say that they're trying hard.
sure. Well, they're rolling to Android, I guess, so it doesn't really matter anymore. But
The proof is now Android.
yeah,
But yeah, we were actually forgetting, the big part of the world. We just usually focus on Europe and especially the US.
sure.
We keep forgetting on Africa. We keep forgetting Middle East. They do actually have the purchase power. We're forgetting about the Asia. So I think these are the continents and parts of the world we actually have to focus on, and always keep in mind what kind of OS are they using, what kind of mobile phones are they using, what's their user experience, etc. So that's really important to keep in mind.
No, that's great advice.
And it was also one of the points when we started our company was that we saw that a lot of local agencies that when they if for example we're based in Dublin, right? So a lot of agencies are based in Dublin, so they focus on Irish clients, for example, or an agency based in New York, they would base on US clients, right? So they have a lot of local knowledge, and they're probably amazing at setting up campaigns and digital marketing for their local entities. However, if a startup would come up and say, okay, we want to target Hong Kong, Japan, Singapore, they would just sort of test, and they would use the same approaches that they would use in the US, whereas they would be completely different in Asia. So our sort of vision at the beginning was to be an expert for all this market, so that when there's a startup, they don't need to have someone or an agency that is great for just one market, but they can have someone who will be great at all markets, but not being a massive agency that only wants to work with Coca-Cola or L'Oreal,
Sure.
but sort of offering this expertise to startups and sort of growing with them on the long term.
No, I love it. I think this is really good. Should we continue with the list?
Yeah, sure.
Sure.
No, we tangent, but it was good.
Well, the third part of it is the execution.
Okay.
The most common mistake in basically any startup is thinking, that online tools are easy to use, easy to be learned. It's like, in a few days you can basically handle them in-house. We've seen numerous cases where a company would simply open a Facebook or a Google account and start spending money. Just creating some random ads, test things on their own, but without in-depth knowledge, it's a bit hard. Usually, you end up losing money. You don't believe in platform anymore. You don't believe that Google or Facebook advertising works. And this is actually where we try to come in, and try to use the tools, try to teach them how to use the tools, show them how to actually create a campaign, how to use the ads, how to use the targeting options. And after a while, we try to share the knowledge. They actually became aware of things that they did wrong in the past, and at the end, we just try to make them know that we know what we're doing, what we know, we know the best what should be done.
Sure.
Because the algorithms behind Google and Facebook are usually complicated stuff. We don't know it, let's say we don't know it completely how it works because we're not Google or Facebook engineers. But we know little bits, we know tricks, we know when to make the right call, when to do something that will actually have an impact. And it requires a lot of data analysis, a lot of knowledge, this is usually when we come in. So the execution is not poor, and we try to do it as good as possible for the clients, and just try to be the best at measuring results at the end, because results are the most important data that actually our clients and we strive to.
Sure. No, that makes sense.
All right.
Yeah, so I mean, a lot of times we would see that clients would set something up, and after 10 days they would just turn it off and think, okay, this is not working.
Totally.
So that's where actually measuring results, like Luca said, comes in, and I think David can tell you more about the fourth actually mistake that we have on the list, because definitely measuring and data analytics is one of big mistakes that startups do as well.
Yeah, I mean, like on that point, like back to your point, data is a king, right? And you can it can go actually both ways. I mean, we're always just talking about trying something and not working. You have examples of startups that do try something and it's working, but basically how they do it, it's actually quite dangerous. Just because it works once, how do you make sure that it will work the second time when you'll actually need it even more? So you have this kind of stories coming up, and then when you start talking to those clients, you can see that measuring being a factor which is completely not included there. You have options in Kickstarter, Indiegogo, on your e-commerce side where you can add any tracking tool. It doesn't need to be Google Analytics. It is majorly used, but so once you add it, you start actually understanding much more about your traffic, how it splits, how it's added, and how it performs. You can pretty much see how your people that convert, how they come to your website versus people that are there more than a minute or so on. So that's one thing. And as soon as you have that set up, then you can kind of have the infrastructure to start doing your own research, kind of trying to see which platforms are driving where. Then if you have like we used a model which kind of focuses on brand awareness, influence consideration, then driving sales. And then you kind of benchmark each of the platform in those segments just to kind of set up the key performance indicators in each, and then you can kind of create a strategy on the long term, and that is usually very important, right? Because your branded keywords and remarketing campaigns usually will always drive traffic, but kind of getting there, kind of earning those clicks, it's much different. And here it comes down to a problem that any digital agency in the world usually sells. So I would say at least the majority is clicks and impressions, right? Which becomes the problem, because we know that you can achieve them in different ways, and but they are not all the same. Yeah.
Sure. And I think the other thing to mention too, and I'm curious to know your thoughts on this, usually, at least in my own experience, I find kind of what works on Facebook or Twitter, or like what works on Facebook won't necessarily always work on, say, Twitter and LinkedIn and any other social media networks, that you almost need to target your marketing a little bit different based on the network you're posting to. Would you agree or disagree with that?
I would completely agree. I mean, just if you look at where Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn versus Facebook are kind of coming in, why they're so much different, you'll see that the things cannot work the same way. Because, I mean, Google is ideally positioned, their whole marketing success is based that the customer is very close to the decision, to the end of the decision, end of purchase moment. Like, I mean, if someone's buy LCD TV, you know that this purchase is probably going to happen quite soon, especially if this is a branded query. So for instance, if they know that they want a Samsung one and they're already looking for special deals on them, like this is where I would say, like, you would need a special ad, probably a text ad. You just need to be there, kind of position themselves. On the other hand, like usually the products that we work with need extensive, more push marketing strategies. I mean, we have products that are like Bluetooth app trackers or something like that. If you're a tracking device, nobody actually really searches that without kind of being on top of their mind at one moment. So like this branding phase becomes much more important. And here, Facebook, Twitter become much more important because their reach is bigger, right? So that
Sure.
they're of course, like you can use image ads, you can target them based on their interest and so on. So yeah, like I would say I would 100% agree.
Interesting. Yeah, because like for me, the show, like just for me and my personal experience is like I can Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, totally figure it out. YouTube, I can't figure that out for the life of me with the show. Like the show gets tons of listens on the radio, gets tons of listens as a podcast. I post the shows to YouTube, and like it barely anybody listens to it. And I've been watching some videos on it, and I think what I'm doing, like my approach to YouTube is totally wrong. So I think it's important to also kind of mention, like, even people that kind of do this for a living still don't know all the answers all the time, right? And that we're still constantly kind of learning and keeping current with that. And that's partly why it's important to kind of outsource sometimes to a company like you guys, just because majority of people don't have time or a person on staff to handle this stuff. And it's changing so fast and so often that unless you're on top of it or constantly trying new things, you're going to have a hell of a time being successful at it.
Yeah. And that's true. And we've gotten clients that, for example, they had nailed Facebook ads, themselves, but
Sure.
like you said, they couldn't crack Google. It was too complicated. They couldn't crack Twitter. They didn't even know LinkedIn had ads, etc. So it's definitely such a wide area. I mean, they can sort of help you, like a lot of times we can use Twitter info and Twitter data to sort of help us define the target audience. And then, for example, go to Facebook and see what this target audience would be there, right? And vice versa with Google, and sort of a comparison. But for sure, like dealing with a lot of clients on a longer period of time, it definitely gives you a bit more of a feel for the whole field, so that when you get a new client, it's a bit easier to say, okay, let's start here. And that is, for example, the fourth step versus if they started step one, you know?
Sure.
So I think that sort of links, like you mentioned with the partner search. I think that's the fifth mistake that we noticed with the startups that we had to deal with. A lot of them complained, for example, that they tried it before with a different agency or with several agencies and they didn't see results. And I think even with a couple of our friends who started their own startups, like they make a decision too fast. It's not going. I mean, if you go and Google digital agency or I don't know, digital marketing, there's just a gazillion of results, and half of them offer services, or products to use for this. And I think it's very difficult to decide, for example, in a few days' time, which normally startups do. They think, oh, we need digital marketing, let's just find something, and it's not that easy to find someone who's actually going to do it. I think David mentioned earlier, some of them sell literally packets, and it would say, pay 500 euros or $500 and you'll get 1,000 clicks, and that's what they sell. And people sort of get excited because they automatically think, okay, I'll get 1,000 clicks, that's 1,000 visitors, that's going to be great, right? But that doesn't mean anything, right? This could be clicks, like we said, on mobile, and they won't even wait until your page loads. Maybe there's not going to be any users checking your site because your page is not loading, so you'll get those 1,000 clicks on the ads, but you're not going to get any visitors, any time spent on the website or with the content or anything. So I think it's not really a mistake that they do, but I think it's very important to stress that they should definitely put a lot of effort into the search and into sort of research into what different agencies do, talk to different agencies and partners and see how their approaches fit yours, right? Because like also Luca said, one size doesn't fit all. So selling packages or anything, it doesn't really work unless they sell a package that is really sort of in sync with what you do, right?
Sure.
So for some, for sure it will. But a lot of times I think it's just important to sort of click, with the team. For us, I think the most rewarding part of the whole experience is that after a few weeks, we feel a part of their team, and I think that's very important, regardless with whom you choose to go with. I think it's important that you're not a number and you hear from them after the end of the month giving you some stats, but that you actually work alongside with them and sort of feel that you bounce off ideas when you need to, and that you really feel, connected and moving in the same direction. I think it's very important in this.
Sure. No, I think that's really good advice. We're kind of running out of time. So is there anything else that you kind of want to cover quick before we kind of promote your social media and where people can find you guys online?
No, I think we've covered
basically, more or less everything.
Sure.
I think you can find a lot more in our social network as well. We just try to, follow as much as possible at Kickstarter and the Indiegogo campaigns. So, yeah.
Interesting. So maybe let's kind of close the show with promoting where people can find you guys online.
Yeah, so it's fairly easy to find us on Twitter, where we're called Nuuk Digital. So it's simply at Nuuk Digital. Remember, it's 2 U's. So NUUK Digital. We post a lot on Kickstarter and Indiegogo projects and interesting content about entrepreneurship and startups in general. We also have a Facebook page, also Nuuk Digital. I don't think there's too many of us, so it should be easy to find. And like you mentioned with YouTube, we're still planning our content for there. So coming soon, we'll say, to YouTube
Awesome.
channel.
Awesome. Perfect. And I'll post these links on the show notes as well, so people can check you guys out from the website as well. But thanks, guys. This has been awesome and really good. And I look forward to keeping in touch with you guys. And yeah, this has been awesome. Thanks again for doing this.
Same here. Thank you for taking the time to speak
Thank you,
to us
Kevin.
from the other part of the ocean.
Yeah, I love the fact that, just through Skype and we can connect, worldwide. Really, I love talking to people from, outside of North America. So yeah, no, thanks, guys. This has been awesome.
Thank you, and hope to speak to you soon.
Sounds
Cheers
good.
from Dublin.
Yeah, sounds good. All right. Later.
Bye.
Okay, bye.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening. You can visit past shows at buildingthefutureshow.com. If you're going to the Startup Expo on February 16th and 17th in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and want to record an episode, please contact me. The music for the show is by Electric Mantra. Check them out at electricmantra.com. Until next time, keep building the future.